I'm joined today by James Lanning. He's a rapper, photographer from Brooklyn, New York. Well, from Maryland,
Yeah,
residing
originally. Yeah,
in
yeah, that's right.
Brooklyn. I remember the first time I ever heard of you, it was through the one music video, and I just remember being like blown away by you comment
Thanks.
stuff and everything. I think, and I'd written it that in the comments, and you replied to it, and that's how I got to know you. Like that's how I know you now.
Yeah, in like 2015, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
2015.
it's a while ago. Yeah.
2015. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where like speaking to you, I find your passion for photography. First proper question I want to ask you is how like have you used your passion for photography and your passion for music, and how have you find maybe how you can um, influence one off another and just create the best product you can, whether that be a photo or whether that be a film or whether that be a new song that you're writing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's at this point, I am just more comfortable using whatever medium speaks to me in that moment, as maybe cliche as that sounds. It's I think before I only really knew what I wanted to say in terms of my music, but I think now I found a way to communicate um, what I was, at least in my mind, starting to do verbally in a
Yeah,
visual sense. So over the past few years, I think just even changing the type of camera I've used has really helped me
yeah,
kind of narrow that focus and curate more of the images that I think speak to the music I'm making as well. So um, I think it just took a lot longer with the photography aspect to actually understand that I should be saying naturally. I don't know why this took so long for me to realize, but
yeah,
it obviously makes sense to want to kind of have the two complement one another and to not necessarily just reiterate exactly what I'm saying, but find ways of expanding on maybe things that I can't communicate in just a verbal sense and do so visually. So I think that's kind of just been a natural growth, and at this point it's really rewarding and I really enjoy every aspect of
yeah,
making like a song and then doing the artwork for it as well, and then creating photos that kind of speak to what I'm saying in the song. So um, I think the newest song that I released, Berlin Blue, is a good example of that, where the album art is a combination of all of those things, and me taking a busted Polaroid camera and then messing with like chemicals and
yeah,
um, cutting it apart and even using my own blood for the album cover. And not in a like just sadistic sense for the purpose of doing it, but for a very like specific intent, and not just to do it to say like I'm weird. I bled on my album cover and it looks cool. You know, it has a very real purpose.
yeah,
And I think learning to um, I guess, have that intent and make sure that everything I'm doing is very specific and means something rather than just kind of like has a shallow aesthetic value or could be interpreted as having meaning, but actually didn't have much thought behind it. I guess I've worked really hard to make sure that everything, every word, every aspect of an album cover or a photo is
yeah.
saying something. So I
Yeah.
don't know if that steered off track a little bit, but
No, I think what you're doing is definitely original, and I think it's important for you to definitely be doing that. I think you're one of the. I listen to a lot of hip hop music, and I think that you're definitely one of the like. While you're a smaller artist, I definitely think you're still one of the most original I've heard. You have your own voice, like your own original sound. Um, I think just
thanks, man.
I think it just mixes really well with what you're doing. Like your photography mixes properly, really well with it as well. And like I know talking to you, like I remember when I was visiting New York and we were walking past that hospital in Brooklyn.
Yeah, Woodhall, I remember. Yeah, on Flushing.
You told me the story. Is it Rahina or
Yeah, correct. Yeah, my friend Rahina. Uh-huh.
um, like you telling me that story and everything that just showed me like how much you do like put your full feelings and emotions into your music. I think that's just like what's definitely sets you apart from every other artist. um
Thanks so much, man. It means
yeah.
a lot. Thank you.
Who so just moving on, who are some of your biggest influences in music?
That's definitely kind of grown and changed. I think the artist Patti Smith is someone who really opened my mind to being comfortable using whatever medium that I see fit. So over the, I guess, past year, because that's such a hard question to answer, within hip hop specifically, like I pretty much only listened to hip hop for a good decade before I really started getting into other genres. But within hip hop, it was really the classic, like late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s stuff. So like Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, KRS, then all the way to like Souls of Mischief, Far Side, like Nas, Biggie, Jay, Eminem, of course, like, so all the classic stuff. But lately it's been kind of a weird mix of artists like Julie Cruz and Leonard Cohen, Elliott Smith, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, like Pink Floyd, pretty much all over the place, man. Like,
you are from Maryland originally,
mm-hmm.
And you went to New York for university.
Yep, correct.
And you're living there now, still in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I've been here 13 years, I guess, in New York City. So yeah, it's been a while, man.
Basically, how have you found like being a rapper in Brooklyn, New York?
I mean, it definitely is inspiring, even in that sense. I mean, I live across the street from where Jay-Z grew up, and I guess, admittedly, when I first moved over here, that was very much something that I thought about a lot while I was recording, because I've recorded every song from where I'm sitting right now, pretty much, you know. So I mean, even that element in itself was inspiring to me, and being in that same space or being near streets that Mos Def mentioned, you know, not far from Myrtle and Broadway, for example, or just being on Nostrand Ave. So yeah, I mean, that element of it is huge, and so many great rappers came out of even Bed-Stuy specifically. I guess Big Daddy Kane was from Bed-Stuy as well. But in terms of doing shows and stuff too, there's definitely a different, I'd say, vibe to performing in New York City and performing in Brooklyn as opposed to like performing in DC or like Philadelphia, for example. It's just this being where hip hop originated. You know, I think people take it very seriously, and it not that they don't in other cities, but I guess there is it's very difficult to impress people here and to get that respect. So it's something you really have to, I think, work hard for, and I think was motivation for me wanting to study all the really great rappers when I first started rapping, and not just kind of jump into it and think that I just had that respect immediately. So yeah, it's like a really earned, I think an earned respect thing that I'm not, I guess, saying that I've earned that respect or anything by any means, but you know, it's something you work toward. And I think trying to live up to the New York standard of hip hop is something that has influenced me a lot, because it is it's a really high bar, you know. I don't even think it's attainable, honestly, for music's so different now, but trying to reach the level of like a Nas or like it's just, to me, it's so high up there that it's, you know, it motivates you, but I don't think it's even reasonable to say that, like, I don't think there'll ever be anyone else that is on that level. I think Kendrick's such an anomaly, you know. Kendrick is incredible. So
yeah, couldn't agree more with you, to be honest with that. Yeah, basically, yeah, we spoke about Berlin off interview there, just
yeah.
And yeah, basically, I just want to ask you, like, what influence do you think that German culture, like that Berlin culture, like has had on like your recent music? Like you releasing Berlin Blue, that was a recent song.
Yeah.
And check it out on Spotify and Apple Music and SoundCloud and all the rest. But yeah, I think, I just want to know, like, how is that German culture like influenced you and your style of music and your style of recent music?
I think it's kind of what I was alluding to when we spoke off the record about it. It's just it's such a complicated place, and the history of it is very apparent while you're there, and you almost feel like you're being pulled in different directions while you're there. And I think that feeling of being unsettled and being confused very much is unfortunately matched how I'm feeling internally. And it's been a really, I mean, I think if there's one thing you know about me, that's been a consistent struggle with me is trying, and that's unfortunately impacted my output. Not so much my productivity, because I've continued to make music during all of this time, like if anything more so over the last few years, but it's definitely impacted me wanting to share it, for example. So I think that element of feeling really conflicted, and it's almost like Berlin is the epitome of, like, it's like a tangible form of an existential crisis. It's like not sure what it wants to be, or just there's too many, I guess, different directions you can go in terms of existing in that space. So I guess that's how I've kind of been feeling. So when I went most recently, or the past few times that I've been, it's been me in probably the worst place I've ever been mental health wise. So I don't know, just that complete feeling of being lost somewhere and being almost like in an in between, and just stuck in that in between and not even sure where to to even wander to next in the city, just kind of walking aimlessly. That's kind of, I guess, that has been the main influence, maybe, is that feeling. So the title, for example, is a more reference to the color. It's Prussian blue, is also known as Berlin blue, which I haven't told anybody. But yeah, so that's where that title comes from, is the color. But it's still about Berlin, very literally, because I remember standing in Kreuzberg and watching the sun just disappear, and then, you know, that in between color, that really dark blue that comes in when the sky is pretty much all but black. That's pretty much that color, and it's such an in between color, and it happens, I guess, between night and day and night, and that was my memory, and I guess that's why I named it that. So yeah,
Definitely. When I first listened to like the first song I heard was One, and I went back and listened to, you know, most of your songs on SoundCloud and
yeah.
on Spotify and everything. And I definitely, I've been waiting for you to release a song.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Berlin Blue was definitely, I think, it definitely. I remember putting it on in the car, and I was listening to it with my sister, and like, she just loves One. Like, all my friends just love One. I remember
Yeah.
new videos of like parties when we'd all just have it on.
Yeah, I remember you sent me one of those. That was, yeah, it was humbling. I remember you sent me that.
Yeah, but yeah, basically, I think that just reminds, like, you know, that reminds me of why, like, I think your music is so original. It's just a completely different sound. I don't think many artists have. Definitely in like the backing track, like, I think you just take risks with like sounds, and it pays off. I think definitely like suits your voice really well, and I think, yeah, I just can't wait to hear some more music soon.
Thanks, man. Yeah, everything has grown a lot in my mind. As much as I do like One, and it's a really like upbeat and uplifting song and motivating song. Obviously Berlin Blue, like you're saying, is complete opposite direction in a way. It's very just like me at the bottom. And yeah, I don't know. It's very obviously very different, but I'm glad people can appreciate that. There's, I guess, appreciate those complete polarized like selves that exist.
Yeah. Yeah, so moving on to that, I just wanted to talk, like, speaking to you from the start. You've always told me about your mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want basically like just ask you to talk about like your mental health and how music and like other interested, and like how that's and helped you through dark periods, and like helped you get through it. Like, how have you been able to, you know, what is your resources for, you know, maintaining you know, a stable mind, really?
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't do that great of a job maintaining a stable mind, but I'd say just staying curious about things. Kind of sounds corny, but I really like obsessively get into reading or studying on my own time. So I'm teaching myself German. Like I'm learning guitar. Every morning I read for like 4 hours at least. So I think remaining curious about things, and then having, even within that, the motivation to look up things that I don't know and go down those rabbit holes. I think that keeps me sane for sure. And that definitely impacts my music and my like willingness to share and put out material and just be fully confident in what I'm making. And I think I have finally reached a point where I am fully just comfortable with who I am when I'm making something and not worrying about outside influences or whether or not it will be well received or if anyone will really like it, as selfish as that sounds. I don't know. For me, that's a good sign that I'm making stuff that is just wholly myself. So I think finally getting to that point has helped me stay sane a bit. So yeah, I mean, it's been a really bad couple years, to be honest. Just like a lot of external things keep happening, and I'm admittedly not as good about handling them as, you know, other people I know. But I started therapy like a year ago, and that has helped. Definitely was afraid of doing that for a while, but that's been an immense help. And just trying to understand why I think a certain way has been helpful in itself, and to have someone navigate me through that. But I mean, the thing that I always come back to is music. And again, I haven't stopped writing even when I've gone like a full year and a half without releasing anything, you know. That's still like every single day all I would do. So I mean, the good news is for people who do care that there are dozens of songs that haven't been shared and that people will hear eventually, I guess, you know. So now that I'm more wanting to share and excited about that, yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately will be something that people can hear in the music in terms of me not having been in a good place. But I think how genuine it is will come across, and that it's not forced at all, and that it very much was kind of what was keeping me going. I think people will hear that for sure.
Again, that's what I said about. I've always said about your music. I think it is very genuine. Everything I've listened to, I think it is all comes from the heart, mind, and I do think it is just real. So yeah, again, yeah, that's pretty much all my questions.
Cool. Yeah, man. Thank you again. Yeah, appreciate it.
Very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, not at all. If you have any other questions, you know, just let me know.